Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for the 21st San Francisco Doc Fest. The festival will be running June 1st through 12th at the Roxy Theater and online. I want to welcome all the filmmakers. We have filmmakers and subjects here from Two Different Eyes, Tuning the Harp, and Danny's Twins. So everybody, welcome. Thank you so much for allowing us to share your stories with the festival. Just to kick things off, if we could just kind of talk about how the films came together, like what the genesis was. And I'm going to start off with June with Two Different Eyes. Can you talk about how you came to collaborate with your brother and what the filmmaking process was like for you and what made you decide to tell your story?
Our work process was pretty straightforward. I actually wrote my story on a document form and I actually sent it over to my brother, and my brother actually read like 2 to 3 pages, kind of brief story, and he was like, okay, we can make it. And then actually like half of the documentary, he immediately asked me a question like, like what do you want to do as a musician or as an artist with the disabilities? And I actually answer to those questions. But the tricky part to me working with my brother, we're just like living together and we're just like grown up together, and it was kind of, do I really need to talk about this with my brother? That was a little tricky part, but it's just like I kind of got to it after a couple times of like mistakes, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna talk like I'm talking to my friends, not my family. But it was fun. And this project actually started as a kind of like a thesis project for my degree, because everyone actually composed music for the existing movie, but I was actually thinking I can be a little bit more creative and more productive with my thesis, because we bring our work to the studio in London called Air Studio, which is a legendary and remarkable studio in London. And yeah, it actually started like that, and I wrote the script and we shot everything, and there was a tricky part, but we actually had a little fight. It wasn't a fight, but like, like I'm too busy, I cannot work right now, and it's a little bit being a kid. It's not just a fight, but
Of course, and especially having it be associated with getting your degree, right? Like it's
yeah.
It's a passion project, but it's also something that helped you very much in your education process. And
yeah,
I think that comes across. It's just so special to experience kind of that melding of sound and image, and how it really helps to tell your story. It's really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Danny and Brad, hi. Danny, I think we'll just start off with you. How did this story come to be? What gave you the trust to put into the filmmakers to help tell the story while you're going through a pretty, challenging time? Like, what was that for you? And your authorship also.
Yeah, so I had a pretty high risk pregnancy. Just obviously being a quadriplegic and having multiples, and just having multiples in itself is considered high risk. And then adding in that extra dimension of my pretty complex disability kind of added to it. So Brad is actually a friend of mine. And we've been friends for, I don't know, maybe 10 years. And he contacted me I think it was like my second trimester, about making a film about this story, because it's just so kind of special and unique. I think he had seen like my pregnancy announcement on social media or something.
That's what it was, yes.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Instagram,
And I actually, because I already like trusted him and knew him, I jumped for the opportunity to tell this story, to share it, especially with other women with disabilities who often don't get a chance to see themselves visualized in the media and on TV as mothers, right? And as parents or as pregnant women even, you know? So like, to me, this is just a huge opportunity to sort of give representation to like a topic that's not often thought about or talked about. And I was worried also like about how they were going to portray my disability. But like I said, because I had this trust in Brad and he was a friend, I knew that he would really listen to my concerns, and because I just wanted it to be really authentic. Like I didn't want it to be just simply like this story meant to inspire people and then they forget about it, right? I wanted to really like impact our social fabric, and like I wanted people to see this and be like, wow, here's a family that's touched by disability and they're normal. They're just like you and me, you know? So
That's so wonderful. And thank you so much for talking about the importance of positive representation and really owning your own story. And Brad, could you talk a little bit about those conversations and how you approach that with your filmmaking?
Absolutely. I mean, when we started talking with Danny, there was hesitation because she had been approached by another entity to cover her story, and there were there was a lot of hesitation to go that route in making sort of an inspirational narrative that has been played out in the media. So we wanted to do something different. So we had some tough conversations early on. And another of our producers, Andy Arias, is also disabled, and he's an advocate and a policy advisor. So we had two very, very solid guides. We looked to Danny and to Andy throughout the process to make sure that the representation was authentic. And in the film, we include pieces of Danny's blog throughout her journey. And that is her voice. We, took pieces of her blog and built those into the film. So it was a constant conversation throughout the entire filmmaking process. We were filming in early 2020. That's when filming started, and then COVID hit. So we had to pivot around March, and Danny and Rudy had to step up and essentially
Rudy's my
become,
husband.
yeah, cinematographers. So we went through a crash course with them on sort of shooting, and I gave them some microphones and some cameras and iPhones and things they already had. But the authenticity became even more, or the story became even more authentic during that period when she had to film her own story from her own perspective. And we were quite concerned in the beginning of COVID if we were going to be able to continue with the project at all. But we'd all put so much time and effort into it that they really came through. And I think that's a really special element of the film.
Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing. And there's something to be said, especially about what it's like to turn the lens on yourself. I think we see this for both you, Danny, and for you, June, right? Like you're telling your own story, but mediated through partnerships, which is kind of an interesting and heady way to feel about representing yourself in this ephemeral medium that we call cinema. So thank you so much. And Luca, hi.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you
Hi,
so much
everyone.
for presenting Tuning the Harp with SF Dog Fest. Could you tell us a little bit about the
you.
genesis of this story, how it came to be?
Sure. So I came in the US from Italy around 2020 during the pandemic in December with my wife, who works at UC Berkeley at university. She's doing a post PhD. So as most European who come here, we were really like shocked about the homeless situation. And so I decided to volunteer. So on Christmas times, I just went to this shelter home and I started volunteer for Dorothy Day House, which is a nonprofit. And I met Matthew. So most of my movies were about human rights. I follow like migrants during the human flow from 2016 and on. And Matthew was a very tender guy. It was like a story with some light at the end of the tunnel. And I found out that he was going every Friday in taking the BART and going to Walnut Creek, like a city nearby, to tune his harp. And I said, where you're going, where to tune the harp? I said, in a harp store. And he showed me the leaflet, and I said, okay, can I come with you and record the story? It seems like very interesting. And he said, sure. And so once I was with him, I just met all this underground community of homeless people that we met like 3-4 different people that they wanted to come with us because I was with the camera. I was probably unusual guy following a homeless guy, and they just wanted to. And I found it fascinating. I said, yeah, that's mostly all about the movie, all about the story that I would like to tell. And that's pretty much it. And now I'm working on people who lives in RVs.
Lovely, thank you. I mean, there's obviously I lived in San Francisco for 15 years. I definitely saw the rise of houselessness amongst my neighbors. I left a little bit before the pandemic, but you don't often get to spotlight the inner lives of our unhoused neighbors and see how they live their lives, what they're doing. We don't often spotlight this, and I think that sharing Matthew's story is a really beautiful, humanizing moment to think about people that we might walk by every day and not acknowledge. So it's a really special story to share. Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
Yeah, invisible people.
Yeah. So let's pivot a little bit and let's talk about what everybody is up to now. June, so you're in South Korea.
Yeah, I actually went to Florida like a couple of weeks ago because our short actually screened at another festival in Florida. And now I'm actually moving to another studio in Korea and working a couple shorts right now, and we'll see how it goes. And my brother and I are still collaborating each other when he needs some music or audio, and I actually work for his documentary or his work as well. So we'll see.
Wonderful. Well, that's so cool. I love that the collaboration is still going despite some sibling squabbles.
Yeah.
How about you, Danny? How are you doing? What have you been up to?
Yeah, surviving twin motherhood with now they're 2 years old. Yeah. And they're wild and they're just so much fun, but I'm also juggling my full-time job. I work from home and also, trying to take care of my body and all the things. I'm also doing some advocacy work, going to the Hill in a couple weeks to advocate with a couple other wheelchair users on a couple key issues. And yeah, I moderate a group of women called Quad Squad, and they're all quadriplegic women. There's about 350 of us. So kind of have fun with that group on the side online, in our whole digital world that we
that's such an
carved out
amazing
for ourselves. Yeah.
Beautiful name for your squad. I love it so much. Awesome. How about you, Brad? How have you been doing? Are you working on anything new at the moment?
I am, yes. We just, with our filmmaking partners from this film, we just founded a nonprofit film production company called Perpetual Films, where we're trying to change the documentary funding and production model. And one of the films on our slate that is in post-production, nearing completion, is a film called Patrol, which follows the struggle of the indigenous Rama and Afro-descendant Creole community in Nicaragua as they fight against illegal cattle ranching in their territory. So we're almost finished with post-production on that and are hoping for a premiere later this year.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Luca, you said that you are, it looks like you're in a production trailer right now.
Yes, something like that. I can show you around. Look, that's my next documentary. It's about a parking lot where all these RV people live.
Kind of like in the world of Nomadland.
Yeah, it's inspired by that.
Oh.
And below ocean level, I hope you could see this documentary. Is amazing from Rossi, is an Italian guy. And yeah, so I encounter in this parking lot is like there are many homeless people and senior homeless people and with mental problems. They are all gathered here, and so I picked 5 characters from 2 women, a guy, so different people. And yeah, I'm trying to produce it. I start shooting and I'm just looking for grants, which is very difficult as a European.
Well, funding models are, that's a whole other ball of
But it's
wax.
coming along. I'm very happy.
And I think just to kind of finish this off, I think if we could just talk a little bit about what the importance is of telling stories from folks that live with differences and what that says about how important it is to be able to share them and what you hope for the future of filmmaking and sharing these stories. June, how do you, I mean, obviously you're actively composing, you're collaborating on different films. Like, do you hope to highlight more folks with visual differences and in your storytelling?
I mean, I think the most important part of telling the story right now is, I think the main thing is letting people know we are here and letting people know we are actually the same as others and we're capable of anything we actually want to. And I think that's really the focus that I want to make sure in my short. And if you actually watched it, at the end of it, I actually say it like a little. So I think that's kind of important thing that we have to say. And right now, I don't know, I just want to survive as a composer.
And Danny, you've already touched about this with your advocacy work, just kind of making different narratives visible. Are you working, do you plan on working on film, any more films, or telling any other stories?
Potentially, you never know. But you know, also just being a member of this community or this population as well, there's so much variety that you come across in terms of like the type of disability or type of difference. You know, and I really don't know very much about June's life as an artist, and you know, with his visual impairment. I don't know, June, how you like to refer to that, but you know, it's important for me to see that lived experience as well, because it's I'm not familiar with it. It's different, right?
Yeah.
And Luca, are you still in contact with Matthew?
Sure, yeah. I went the other day in the shelter house and told him, you know, your movie, you remember that I filmed you like 2 years ago and I made a movie? I said, yeah, I remember. It's been selected at San Francisco Doc Fest. If you're gonna display it, I'm gonna just rent a car and bring you there. And he was almost crying. It was like very happy. So yeah, I am.
That's
Yeah,
so
there's
beautiful.
a lot of more. I mean, I didn't tell really his story. So it's like a journey inside like the underground guts of homeless people, but not about Matthew. He has a very interesting story, but not this time. So
That's something I was very curious about, which I think, I don't know if anybody's ever seen the film The Conversation, which is set in San Francisco. And there's a part where this woman's in a park and she's looking at somebody who's unhoused, and she's like, that used to be somebody, that was somebody's baby boy. And I think that it's really important to highlight and humanize all of these stories that I think we as a society tend to disregard. And it's really, really special. Brad, do you have any words you want to leave anybody with about your filmmaking praxis or the film?
Sure. We just hope that this film allows for everyone to see disabled parenting in a new light, and that it changes the narrative and brings visibility to the issue.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for joining us for this Q&A, and thank you to our audience who got to share these stories of resilience and visibility. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.